Well, with the brand new announcement that the Universal Studios United Kingdom theme park is green lit, and we not only have concept art, but we have confirmation of some of the lands that are coming to this park. And one of those is a land that I have wanted for a very long time, which is Back to the Future. But given that this is coming to Universal UK, does this mean that Universal Orlando may end up getting some sort of Back to the Future type of attraction or other IPs that the Universal Studios UK park is getting? So in today's video, we're going to have a discussion about the Universal Studios UK park and what we think about the potential of Back to the Future and potentially other properties coming to Universal Orlando as well. So they announced it officially as being built, and then there was concept art, and people started digging into the concept art. And then someone found that one area, and I'll see if I can find it. I'll give you guys something to talk about. And everyone was like, could this be Back to the Future? And I'm like, there's no way. Like, I remember showing my wife, and that's her favorite movie. And I was just like, there's no way they're doing Back to the Future. And then, like, a day later, the BBC comes out with that article that basically confirmed. And they said sources were telling them you had James Bond stunt show, you had Lord of the Rings, you had Back to the Future, Jurassic Park, Minions, and am I forgetting something?
Paddington. Well, and this is the thing too. Real quick, Jared. The BBC saying it is basically confirmation to me. It's almost like when the OC Register out here in California, when the OC Register says that kind of stuff. Oh, a source close to Disney said this, out, and the other. Oh yeah, okay, Disney said it, and you're floated out there. That's basically official. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I will say this too, really quick, and no offense to the Brits, but I had no intentions of going over to the UK after seeing this. Yeah, I think I might have to play.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a field trip involved now. There's gonna be an OG 55 Captain Magic trip because Lord of the Rings and Back to the Future. Like, are you Lord of the Rings? Are you kidding me? This has been like a theme parker's wet dream up until now, and
yep.
Official. And the trademark, what's funny is the trademark for Universal UK was actually filed in 2022, I believe. So I mean, that's guaranteed.
The one, I guess I was the most surprised about Back to the Future. I think Lord of the Rings has been floated out there for a long time about potentially, and it makes sense putting it in the UK. Although I will say Tolkien would absolutely hate it. No, like if you know anything about Tolkien, he was not big on commercializing things he had, but hopefully they do that land very well. But yeah, Back to the Future, and we've talked about this before. I want that in Orlando, or at least I think it would go over so well. But seeing it out here, it does give me hope that we obviously that we had talked about. If any theme park company was going to take a risk on a nostalgia IP, it would be Universal. They clearly are doing it. So does that translate to the U.S.?
I think it does. Jared, because you out here in California and Hollywood, we got Fan Fest coming up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big things for Fan Fest is Back to the Future. Universal probably gets they have a lot of data in regards to, how that property is maybe moving tickets for them for that Fan Fest and what have you. And they're seeing, wow, this is actually Back to the Future is one of the driving forces for people to buy these tickets. There has to be some internal data here showing this is a big franchise,
But man, seeing that, I'm like, and we talked about before, I would love some sort of updated simulator version of like the old ride, but maybe use the Kuka arm, do some with the tech you can do now. I think the chances it's possible. And seeing it out here, I want to go see this when it's open. I think it's supposed to open in 2031 is what they said. And I mean, I think if you do Lord of the Rings well, if you do Back to the Future well, I mean, that alone, I think a lot of people are going to be happy about.
And by this piece of concept art, I told OG this when we talked about this. I love how Universal is kind of growing its distinct look of how the setup is for a theme park. You can identify, okay, this is a Disney park because of this, and this. You can identify Universal now because I feel like they have the surrounding lands, somewhat of a body of water, in the center of the park.
Yep.
And I love how that kind of became Universal's kind of trademark in theme parks, moving forward.
Yeah. It's definitely the Islands of Adventure model. I think most of this Beijing has the same very similar layout as well. So
yeah.
I mean the Bond stunt show, if they do like they did in Waterworld, I mean, that sounds like it'd be a great show.
And that's exactly what Universal Studios Florida needs, because even though we have the Bourne Identity, which took over T2 3D, we don't have that big scale stunt show with fireworks and props and fire and explosions and that's exactly what that park is needing, because again, I mean, it's based off of movie filming, and even though there's that, it doesn't have that edutainment aspect to it anymore, it's still Universal Studios Florida, and there's a certain DNA that it has to maintain, that has to do, that's supposed to tell the guests like, hey, this is filmmaking, and even if it does it on a slight level of, again, not edutainment, but just from an not education, but like an entertainment sense. Like I like if I'm going to go to Universal Studios, for example, I think one of the two things that I'm looking for, whether it's the Florida park or whether it's the Hollywood park, is one, I want to see sets, especially in the Hollywood park, because it's right there in the studios. I want to see where films are being made. I want to see some props, those kinds of things. And then I want to ride some rides about the films. But I also want to see that kind of translated over Universal Studios Florida. I feel like just because it's in Florida, it doesn't mean you just discard that, right? Because when the park was originally built, I was there in 1990. I can tell you, it was very much like Universal Studios Hollywood. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it was a working studio. They had Nickelodeon. Right. They were filming commercials, movies there, and things like that. Okay, obviously we're not going to do that now. But bring the entertainment, and a stunt show with 007, with water pyro. Maybe they throw in some Moonraker, or Man with the Golden Gun, and maybe have a homage to every single James Bond movie in this show, man.
Oh.
Like, get out of town,
dude. Like Pierce Brosnan lookalike, and just go with that. He's Sean Connery's the right answer, but Pierce, I love Pierce Brosnan.
Oh, I love Pierce as well. This is interesting, kind of off topic, but not really. You can see here the entranceway, right? They're going for that Hollywood, old school LA Hollywood kind of gateway into the theme park, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. This could be, and we've talked about this on OG55 quite a bit actually with DCA, because you have the lead up with DCA to Buena Vista Street, the old Hollywood. Mm-hmm. If they were to switch that theme up a little bit into Disney's cinematic adventure, you can do this style park. You can turn DCA into this kind of thing where, you walk into the Hollywood vibe, right, with the old LA thing. And then once you get past that, though, then you get into the worlds of cinema, right? So you get into Pandora, you get into Cars Land, you get, and I think that might be the future of DCA. And this kind of reminds me a little bit of like what they could possibly do with that park. So I know it's a little off topic, but just seeing this, especially with Pandora coming to DCA, I feel like there's something with that. There's a new direction coming, I think, with DCA. So we'll see.
And apparently a lot of people asked, like they wanted to do Harry Potter, but there are more restrictions with that IP in the UK. But I guess they did leave it open-ended for expansions, if they might be able to work out that deal, or like we were talking about, if Universal buys Warner Brothers, I would imagine that would free up a lot of stuff potentially. But it's also good not to have it in a way. I love the Potter stuff. I think they've done a great job with it, but it's also good to have a little variety. And hey, this park doesn't have it, so that's kind of cool. It kind of makes it a little different, right? Stand out. Make it its own unique park. I mean, I don't think Lord of the Rings is going to come to Florida. I've never thought that would be the case, just because the trilogy's the best trilogy ever. But in my opinion, I never have felt that it has enough of a following that would translate to a theme park, just because I just never felt like it would happen. But Back to the Future, I do feel like is possible, just given that movie's untouched. It hangs around Universal, like you were saying, Fan Fest. They brought back the movie, the summer movie parade this year. You can tell they're kind of toying with it.
Oh, they are. And could you imagine, you're sitting in that vehicle, like let's say the DeLorean, right? It's on a Kuka arm, right? You're sitting on the ground and you hear Marty say, "Hey, Doc, we don't got enough road to get to 88. Well, road where we're going, we don't need road." And you just take off. I'm like, oh man,
it feels like you're taking off. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it'd be so cool.
So let me ask,
I would love it.
Okay, OG, I know where you stand with the Back to the Future ride. You want a non-roller coaster so that we can enjoy it as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, you too. Okay, George, buddy, you gotta be with me on this. All right, please. I want a roller coaster that goes 88 miles an hour, dude. I want the thing to fly off the freaking track.
When
Flames come up.
for me,
Yeah.
okay, so for me, I am all about immersion and storytelling and very creative, you know, attractions. When it comes to Back to the Future, when I started watching the concept of the Fast and the Furious roller coaster being built, you know, and piece by piece, and I'm thinking this thing is massive, this thing is huge, this thing's going to be great. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking what would really make this better is for them to ditch the Fast and the Furious franchise and turn it into the Back to the Future. Because I have to actually say I'm with you on that, Slimer. Like I want to actually sit in a like a roller coaster vehicle that is designed like the like
DeLorean
the car itself,
DeLorean.
and literally just right out the gate, just rocket out of that. It's part of my language, and literally just go wild and crazy where it's like you can't even like catch your breath.
You'd have to have the music playing as a ride through, though.
Oh
Yeah.
You have to do like rock and roller coaster on steroids.
Yeah.
All right, now we're getting into like concept theme here, but like you get into the DeLorean train. All right, you pull into let's call it the launch zone, the time travel launch zone. And there's a Universal cast member there that's dressed like Doc Brown. He acts like they hire this actor, right? And he's got a microphone, and he's talking, and he's got the remote control, and he's gonna launch you at 88 miles, and he's got the remote control, and he's like revving you up like he does in the movie. And there's like smoke coming out of the back, and he's going fast, like 55, 65, and then it launches, right? And it hits 88 miles an hour. And when it launches, if you look at the building here, notice it launches from indoors, right? So what if when it launches, there's like you're surrounded by screen technology and fog smoke machines, and so it creates the illusion of breaking the time barrier using like lighting and OLED screens.
Yeah.
And then when you come out of it, you come out in a different time era, whether it's 2015, whether it's dinosaurs around you, who knows, right? Like there's so many ways they can cut this cloth. But I think that'd be fantastic. And then as you come out, right, there's fire that lights up the track or makes it look like the track is lit up. Obviously, the track's not going to be lit up, but you have a streak of fire coming out of that building, dude. And that thing just comes out at 88 miles per hour, which would probably be one of the top 10 fastest roller coasters in the world.
Oh yeah, no, I'm telling you, with this coaster, you can have like 3 or 4 major show buildings, and you can go to to your point, Slimer. You can go to like the future, like 2079 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then you dip out, and you're like in the prehistoric era, and you're going around dinosaurs and all this stuff, and then you can go back to the Wild West.
Well, if we're going full immersion, this is where screens in a simulator. Kuka arm, I'm telling you, that would work better. And I'm going to bring the chat in to back me up just because I want more numbers here. It says, yes, screens can be good. Heifer says this. The best rides are the ones that use screens, practical animatronics, etc. What matters is how well they are used. I think if you want to do a Back to the Future, you want to immerse yourself in another time period. I mean, the vivid HD screens. And I'm just saying, I think that would be the way to go. And I would ride it a lot. I don't like roller coasters that much. So selfishly, that's why I'm pitching it. But I like your idea, Slimer. I think all that is... I would love it. Even if they did a roller coaster, I'd still love it. I think that'd be great.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many things you can do with it. And if you were able to get the sensation, let's say they did go a simulator Kuka arm or something. If you were able to do that sensation like you getting thrust back in your seat going 88 miles per hour, that would be like icing on the cake if you were able to pull that up. I don't know how you could. Maybe you could figure that out, but
a Kuka arm would be a really good idea because when you're in front of the screen, that's when you're time traveling. And then as you come out of the time barrier, now you're in that time era, whether it's dinosaurs, the year 2069, aliens, whatever. I think that'd be a great idea as well.
Well, and if you could do it, I don't know if you could do the Kuka arm, but like it's like you do the Smuggler's Run where you're sitting in the DeLorean. I think if you had like that would be the fun part of like you're sitting in the car and it's like you're fully immersed. Like that would be like I just imagine how cool that would be.
Or what if you kind of did like a hybrid of both, like with the technology that Disney's doing with that Stark Flight Lab, where it connects like the robotic arm connects to like the seating part, and it lifts you up, and then you do your whatever it does. It's aerial dance, whatever they're calling it, and then it detaches. So what if you start off to where it hits like almost like, you know, the 88 miles per hour, like that coaster form, but then after then it starts moving, it detaches and it becomes like the Kuka arm, where then you utilize the screens as like you're going through each immersive, you know, with the dinosaurs or, you know, 2015. And then as it circles back, a way that it reconnects to the vehicle itself. And then you have to travel back to your own time. And then you have to hit that 88 miles per hour again.
Well, and that's what's exciting about this Back to the Future thing, because we haven't seen Comcast tackle this franchise yet.
And they want to.
And they want to. I want to see Comcast tackle this franchise, because Comcast has done very well with their theme parks, obviously, and not perfect. You know, there's been misses, but there's been misses. Even Disney's had misses. You know what I'm saying? But by and large, Comcast has done a really good job with the Universal parks. I want to see them tackle this franchise and just go all out with it. I mean, this is so much potential, unbelievable, and it taps into Universal's kind of like heart and soul. Like, this is like, you know, you have the Universal Monsters, you got Back to the Future. Like, this is Universal, you know? This isn't like some licensed out thing. This is Universal, you know?
It can also be like almost their love letter to the fans too. Like, because I mean, a lot of people made the point, Back to the Future sort of saved the park because that was the first ride that really was a hit that brought people in. So it's like you pay homage to this ride that, you know, was one of your most successful early things. I mean, George's idea is great. I think I would love it. And there's so many things you could do. Who knows where the tech's at? I mean, there may be stuff we don't even know about. They might be able to implement, but the potential is there. I know some people are wish-wash, but it's like the fact that it is popping up in the UK. I mean, it just proves they're willing to do it.
Right.
I guess. Well, I think we may find out rather quickly after Epic opens what they plan on putting into the existing parks. I kind of feel like they're going to go. They're trying to do. They're obviously being very aggressive, and I think that they're just going to continue to do that. And they very well could just be like, "Here's what's coming in the next 5 to 6 years, or whatever their time period is." Like, what the Universal will do. Here's a concept art.
I'm glad Universal made this announcement right now, because if that is the time frame when this particular park will be done around like 2031, you know, or 2032 or what have you, then that is the starting point for Disney's second half of the 10-year of their investment. So Disney is already seeing this, you know, not saying that they have to compete with this, but it's just like compiling all the data of saying, okay, where are fans looking at? Okay, fans are looking at the nostalgia. Fans are looking at these immersive, you know, worlds where, you know, you don't really think to re-put them back into a theme park. Okay, how can we do that in our own way? And that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like Universal does what they do best. Disney does what they do best. You know, despite of me having, you know, a Disney bias, you know, I always will, but I love how they kind of play off of each other with their individual strengths, where then it can become their own. For an IP like Back to the Future, and I know you both aren't roller coaster guys, would this entice you to say, you know what, F it, I'm going to go on it? It
could. I've said before, if you did something I love and it was a roller coaster version, let's say you did a Wolverine roller coaster. I'd be like, oh, I gotta at least do it once. Like, it's not like with me, it's not motion sickness. Like, my wife loves roller coasters, but she gets motion sick. I just don't like the sensation of like my stomach dropping. And probably my wife says I'm a control freak, which I am admittedly. So maybe that's part of it. Because same thing when I'm flying. I'm like, this is going like every time we land, I'm like, he's going way too fast. Like, I have any idea of what's going on. But it would be possible. I definitely think I could be persuaded depending on the IP. Like, if they do a Back to Future coaster and they got the fire that coming out of the wheels, and I would be tempted to at least do it once, probably.
Yeah. And it's also an IP that this is kind of like where, you know, I feel like Back to the Future is a more family IP than Fast and Furious.
That's kind of what my thinking would be. They would tend to go maybe toward more of a, I guess you could say inclusive, or more people could ride it, versus a Velocicoaster, which undoubtedly I'm sure is a great ride, but it also doesn't appeal to a broad range of people just given how intense it is. So you could have that issue with it. But yeah.
Exactly.
No.
I do want to ask you guys this, because I feel like this is something that has been on the back of my mind, and I feel like if they're going to incorporate any IP into Islands of Adventure, my thinking on this has actually changed quite a bit now that I've seen all the Zelda stuff in Super Nintendo World.
Agreed.
So yeah, so we used to have this idea that Zelda was going to come to Lost Continent just because it kind of looked like Hyrule. Like that's a ridiculous assumption. But Islands of Adventure is predominantly all based off of books, right? So like every island in there is based off a book. Okay. Lord of the Rings obviously is based off of a book. What do you think is the probability? Has the probability gone up significantly now that they have the license for Lord of the Rings and for this to come to Islands of Adventure? And if it does, do you think that is a good fit? Does Lord of the Rings have a big enough cultural impact in the United States? I think it does.
I think
to justify bringing this to Islands of Adventure.
I think so too. I agree with you. I think with Zelda, I mean, Zelda is very popular. I think like wherever they do decide to put it, if they do at all, I think it'll be tremendously successful. But I feel like if you're gonna kind of continue with that storytelling, I would want Zelda, if they were to add it to Epic Universe, because it could be adjacent off of Super Nintendo world, so to speak. You know, you can create your own the own lore of Zelda and what have you. With the Lost Continent area, I mean, and actually, Slimer, you brought up a good point, which I never really thought about. Yeah, it is actually based off of books and novels and what have you. And I feel like to integrate Middle Earth into that in such a big way, because you could then maybe possibly have a Lord of the Rings stunt show that could take the place of where Sinbad was.
Yeah.
You can add an immersive
Battle at Helm's Deep
technological. I do too. I mean, it's been bad. But but like you could add like a technological kind of like, I don't know, immersive dark ride where Poseidon's Fury is. I mean, do whatever you want, but as I said, please, Universal, for the love of God, just leave my Mythos.
I was gonna say, whatever they do, don't touch the food in Mythos. Just, you can change the outside of it, but don't
change the outside. Do not touch the inside. Don't touch the menu. Don't touch a thing.
Well, I think undoubtedly the chances of this happening have gone up, given they have the right for it. I think after seeing how much Zelda is in that Super Nintendo store that's outside the land, I'm thoroughly convinced they're putting Zelda in Super Nintendo World, which does make sense. I do know on some level when they were developing Zelda at some point, there was worry about the mass appeal of it. Like, is it like it's a big property, but it's also a niche within Nintendo as well. So it's not like a Call of Duty video game. It's like, its own little thing. So if they were worried about would it be enough to draw people into the park, you tuck it into Super Nintendo World, it becomes part of all Nintendo has to offer.
Yeah.
And I mean, would Lord of the Rings fit in Islands of Adventure? I think it would. And I think that Lost Continent is a great spot you could potentially do it. And there's a ton of stuff you could do with it. Right. I think it'd be great. I think it would just come to would they pull the trigger on it? I don't know. I hope they would. I think it would fit, but the chances have gone up. I still don't think
it also depends on the success of how well they execute this in the UK park, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things if I could urge Universal when it comes to Zelda, like, because you have Mario and Donkey Kong, which are great franchises, but they are more on the cartoony side, so I get it. But Zelda, you got to go like Mythos aesthetics, right? Like you got to really go epic, like really go all out. The scale and scope should be like what you see when you walk into Harry Potter, the new area, the Ministry of Magic thing. This massive everything, and it's like you're just like taken away by it. Like you can't go for Zelda. You go more real. I think you don't do the cartoony like Donkey Kong route, in my opinion. So
that would be interesting because the live action Zelda movie that is happening is not Universal, it's Sony.
That's true.
A lot of people were wondering if maybe they backed off Zelda because the assumption was the Zelda movie was going to be done by Illuminations because they did Super Mario Brothers. So I don't know if that changes the equation, if they're thinking, well, we don't have the rights to this movie, but maybe tucking it in Super Nintendo World and making it like the games, they just keep it in that whole realm of the video game stuff alone.
And if they don't, it's not like it's off the table completely, because Universal Studios actually has a really good working relationship with Sony.
Yeah,
that's true.
I mean, you have Men in Black, which is owned by Sony. Ghostbusters, also owned by Sony. I'm pretty sure there's a couple more that I'm missing in there, but they've been working cooperatively with Sony in the parks for a very long time. And I think Sony's pretty smart in that they don't make any sort of capital investments like that into their own entertainment or their own software. Just like they don't have a streaming service, but they are willing to license it out
right,
for a pretty penny to Universal Studios. So that way another company can promote their own property. And that's something that's been working well with Universal Studios for a long time.
Well, and also, I mean, they've said that the Zelda movies, they want to make a trilogy. And essentially, like almost like a version of like Lord of the Rings.
Oh man,
they're filming in New Zealand as well, which is where Lord of the Rings was. If that becomes like a massive property, I mean, the chances of that version of Zelda becoming a thing obviously would go up as well. So yeah, I mean, they may just be waiting to see how that movie goes, and then figure out which way they want to go with it. But yeah, I mean,
if they go that route of Lord of the Rings, then give it the how do I say it? Like the Percy Jackson kind of feel to it. Like they got to go, like
big.
For sure.
Yeah, more big, more epic, so to speak.
Yeah.
And not kind of like dilute it down.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the L brings up a good point. He goes, I think it needed a lot more space for Lord of the Rings land. That world is huge. That is one thing about that area. It's not massive over there in the Lost Continent. So to do it properly, do you have enough space, or what would you take? Is
there any extra expansion like beyond that or around it?
I mean, when you walk, it butts right up into Hogsmeade in the train station. I mean, you could come forward. Yeah, maybe a little, but unless there's a lot of backstage. I mean, you do have the Poseidon show. Maybe that would free you up if there's stuff back there, because a lot of the backstage stuff they have moved over to Epic Universe. That's one advantage they have with Epic, is that does free up backstage areas where they could expand the parks. Maybe that would help them there. I'm not really sure off the top of my head if they have room back there or not, but
you can also take out Seuss Landing and replace it with Lord of the Rings completely. And I would definitely do that.
I wouldn't be upset. My children would not be happy, but they're getting they need to get into Lord of the Rings anyways. I would much rather my children be into Lord of the Rings, because I feel like that's the proper way to, I want the Battle of Helm's Deep. I want Sean Bean at the premiere of it when he unveils it, because I love Sean Bean. He always dies, but I love his voice. Movies is national treasure.
I will say Universal would have a monopoly, competitive wise, on Disney, with two things: that if they end up acquiring the Warner Brothers catalog, so to speak, utilizing Looney Tunes, Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, you have like all that portfolio, and also talks that the majority, I believe it's going to happen eventually. One of the biggest franchises ever is getting Pokemon into the park. Once that happens, that's going to be a game changer.
I think I've heard that one's pretty much almost a go over in the Simpsons area. Last I heard about it, but I think that would be. Either way, I think they're gonna have some pretty interesting announcements I would say tentatively, at least the next year, about what they're gonna bring to the existing parks. But that's gonna be it though for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about all this? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.